The hardest video I've ever had to edit. This is the Draw My Life tag. It stopped recording at the end and I had to just show pictures that I'd already drawn, so it's a ghetto version. I was born July 31st, 1984, and this isn't sped up fast enough to match my talking. I lived with my mom and my dad, and we lived across the street from my grandparents, which was my mom's mom and dad. It was cool to have them so close, because we could just go across the street and see them. And I didn't speed this up fast enough. I'm gonna draw their house, grandma, grandpa, la 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 la. And I'm sick right now, so I'm sorry if my voice sounds weird. When I was 4 and a half, my little brother Brad was born. In December of 1988. We always used to play on the huge rock that my grandparents had in their backyard. It was our favorite thing to do in the summer. Sometimes it was a ship, sometimes it was a house. We made it into anything that came to our imagination. When I was 7 years old, I had my tonsils out because I was constantly getting strep throat and throat infections. I learned at an early age that me and anesthesia don't mix. I swore at the nurse when I woke up. Years later, when I had my wisdom teeth removed, similar events occurred, and my mom again thought it was hysterical. And here I wrote bitch, but you can't see it. When I was 7 years old, we got my dog Freddie. Well, my grandma got him. She knew someone who was getting rid of him, and they brought him over. He was just a little puppy. I was playing in the backyard on my trampoline, which I fail at drawing in this picture, and I saw a little yellow puppy with big, huge ears come trotting up to me. It was love at first sight. We always had animals growing up. We had cats and guinea pigs and rabbits, but there was never a time I didn't have a pet, but Fred was always my special guy. That's supposed to be the trampoline. When I was 8 years old, my parents split up. Even at that age, I knew that my dad was a jerk, and it was his fault because he cheated on my mom. My mom, brother, and I moved into my grandparents' house with my 2 uncles. My brother and I were excited because it was like Full House. And I'm drawing us off-screen with the house off-screen because the camera was crooked. Full House. My grandpa let me have... Oh, shit. I missed this. Brad and I had our fights, but we were always close. I think the divorce made us stick together. My grandpa let me have his old VHS video camera when I was about 9. From there, my brother and my friends and I started constantly making movies. We would get playbooks from the library and act out plays. We'd act out fairy tales. We'd make up our own original movies. When we got older, we started doing horror movies and stuff, which are just ridiculous. We had costumes and all, mind you. To this day, I have hours and hours of these movies that are converted onto DVDs. I'm glad I did that because it's a great collection of memories, and this kind of began my love of making videos. That's supposed to be a witch, but you can't really tell. And then I'm going to draw a horrible DVD off screen again. When I was 10 years old, I discovered Green Day's music, and a lifetime of loving my favorite band began. I always loved art in school. It was my favorite subject every year. And in high school, I was one of the few people that got psyched for the advanced art classes. And that's supposed to be a palette and paintbrush, but again, it's off screen. School-wise, junior high was my favorite period. This was when I really started making lifelong friends and had tons of fun. In 8th grade, we went to Washington, D.C. and had an absolute blast, even though we were dead tired the whole time. And this is going to look like a bird cage, but it's supposed to be the Capitol building. And then I write DC, but you can't see it. In 10th grade, my grandpa had his second stroke. The first one years earlier was minor. This was severe. It left his right side paralyzed and he couldn't talk. He's been that way ever since. It's hard on my family and hard to explain to people that he can't talk. It just sucks because he used to take me fishing all the time, and at the time he just bought a new boat. Life can really screw you, and that's when I started learning that. When I was in 10th grade, my mom met a guy. I thought he was nice, but he led her on for a while until she found out he was an ex-drug addict that became re-addicted. To make a long story short, I felt like he was trying to take her away, and she ended it when she found out about everything. He kept trying to come over and harass her. It was just a huge mess. And I didn't fast forward this enough. Around this time, something in me must have went off. I'm sure a shrink would have prescribed me a bunch of meds, but all of a sudden I was just done with school. I started missing 4 out of 5 days a week. Soon after getting in trouble for it from the school, I started homeschooling and finished the rest of high school that way. If I could redo that period of my life, I never would have done it that way. I would have just finished and graduated with everyone else, but you can't go back and redo it, so I just have to live with it. I had my issues with trusting guys due to my dad and my mom's failed relationships. None of mine, and there were very few, ever lasted. I just gave up. For years I gave up. When I was 17, I got my first job. It lasted about a year until some asshole bigwig told me to clean the bathrooms because it was a mess. That was not my job. I was a cashier. I walked out and never went back. When I was 18, my mom took me for my first tattoo. Though I swore I wouldn't get any more as I sat there because it hurt too much, I ended up falling in love. I loved art and I loved this form of it, and I wanted to learn how to do it. A few months later, I got my second one and just kept getting them. They are addicting. A while down the road, I got my own tattoo gun and some inks and needles and whatnot and started practicing on myself. And I soon practiced on my mom and a couple of my friends and eventually got better at it, but it's something I would still like to pursue. I just don't have the time right now. I got a new job almost right away after that old one. Oh, and this is supposed to be my arm and me practicing. I got a new job almost right after the other one, and that is actually the same job I still have, which has had its ups and downs, but I don't want to stay there forever, but it is a job. I met my best friend working there. We bonded over Good Charlotte, and we went to see them together and have been inseparable ever since. Yay, Good Charlotte. A few years later, I decided to cut people out of my life who were a negative influence. I had this one friend who just made my life absolutely miserable. When I realized she was the problem, it made me a much happier person. She was one of those people who would take, and never give anything back. I helped her out countless times, was always lending her money and paying for her stuff, and never got paid back or given anything in return, which was ridiculous. When I was 21, my dear old Freddie had to be put to sleep. He was 15 and led an amazing, long, happy life for a doggy. I was totally heartbroken, and to this day I miss him dearly. I got a tattoo of him with angel wings on my forearm, and it makes me happy that I can always see him. It really helped me with the grieving process, which is another reason why I love tattoos. And what's going on? In 2008, my grandma found out that she had breast cancer. This devastated my family. My grandma is like a second mom to me. She helped raise my brother and I. As if this news wasn't terrible enough, a couple of weeks after we found out that she was going to have surgery and have her right breast removed, we suddenly lost my mom. It was the hardest thing I've ever had to deal with in my life. She came home one day from the store and collapsed. My brother found her and we called 911. By the time we got to the hospital, she had died. We were so confused. I was just numb. I cried and cried all that night. At some point fell asleep, but cried through my sleep, and my eyes were swollen shut the next morning. And then we had to go to the funeral home and with everything, and my family went months without an answer as to what happened, and finally found out that it was a massive heart attack from heart disease. My mom was my best friend, and not a day goes by that I don't think about her or miss her. And I screwed that up. My grandma had put off her surgery because of this, but finally had it and made it through with flying colors, a bit of good news for once. But as cancer seems to like to do, it snuck back in again. She had nothing left in that breast to take out, so they did a series of treatments with radiation and thankfully got rid of it again. My granny's tough, and that's where I get it from. I started doing YouTube videos as a way to channel my love for makeup and give me a new hobby to keep my mind off things. I was nervous at first, but quickly warmed up to it and got used to talking to the camera. I met another of my besties again by bonding over Good Charlotte. You guys know her as Have You Met Ashley on here. I talked her into doing beauty videos as well. We bonded over our sick obsession with makeup and often go on makeup shopping sprees together. Work was going well at that time, and we had a new boss. When he promoted me, he hired someone he knew who was his cousin, but I wasn't supposed to know this at the time, to replace my old job as a cashier. He soon became one of my best friends, and when we went out one night, he came out to me. It was one of those situations where I knew it all along, but was glad that he was comfortable enough to tell me. And this is where I have to show pictures I already drew, because I screwed up. Well, the camera screwed up. It wasn't my fault. Later that year, on 4th of July, I got invited to his family's 4th of July. I almost didn't go, but I'm really glad I ended up going. He introduced me to his brother Stephen, who had apparently wanted to meet me after seeing my Facebook. We went to see the fireworks, and a few days later, he asked me on a date. And I'm screwing it up again. I was super nervous on our first date, but we hit it off and he asked me out again and I said yes. This continued and we fell in love, and I have never met anyone that makes me so happy or understands me so well. I honestly believe I found my soulmate, and if I did, then there's truly someone out there for everybody. The day after Thanksgiving, he proposed to me and I said yes, but we kept it a secret for a while. We figured our families would freak out because we'd only been dating about 5 months. Little did we know that would be the least of our worries. In February, I got sick, and it ended up being mono when I found out from my regular doctor, but my sides started killing me to the point I thought I had a kidney infection, so I had Stephen take me to the emergency room at 5 a.m. because I was crying in pain. They gave me an IV and took a pee test to make sure I wasn't pregnant. The lady came in the room and told me I wasn't. They did blood work on me, and when she came back in, she said I was. I was in shock and started crying. I didn't know what to do. I never were really sure if I wanted to have kids or not. They sent me for an ultrasound and confirmed I was only a few weeks along, and that I also had a gallstone that was probably the cause of my pain. Stephen was very supportive and said whatever I wanted to do, he was going to be there. I was scared to tell my grandma. I felt like I was going to disappoint her. I was 27 years old, but still living with her. It was a few weeks before she figured it out. She wasn't happy, but I felt like a huge weight was lifted off my shoulders. I started pushing for Stephen and I to find a place. It caused a lot of arguments between us, but we made it through. We finally got really lucky and found a really good deal on our apartment, and we made it our little nest. I had a good pregnancy till the seventh month, where I was huge and my ankle started hurting. I was just done being pregnant after that. I left early for maternity leave because my boss was being an asshole. My water finally broke and I got excited. I was a week overdue and went into labor the day before that I was supposed to go in to be induced. Pretty much right away I started heavy labor. Stephen was there for me the entire time, holding my hand. I wanted to do it natural, and after 8 hours I couldn't take it anymore. I started crying, wasn't progressing, and told them to give me the epidural, which fucked everything up. It made me nauseous and messed up all my contractions, and then my doctor ordered an emergency C-section. The medicine that they gave me for that made me shake uncontrollably, and when they let Stephen into the room, I was half asleep but knew he was there. It felt like only a short time before I felt them yanking on me and heard my baby's first cries, and then everyone saying how big he was. Stephen and I started crying and got to see little Aiden for the first time. It was such a happy moment and totally worth all the pain I had just been through. So that brings us up to date. I have my little family now, and we are doing well. I couldn't ask for anything more. I love all of you guys, and I'm so happy that you enjoy my videos, and I plan on making many, many more.